you to the session today, and then we'll introduce our speaker a little bit more and get started. So a bit about the Boardroom. And by the way, this is being recorded in case anyone would like to get a recording of it later. So the Boardroom is a volunteer-run organization focused on advancing women to higher levels of leadership, and it provides free access to C-suite leaders across the United States through webinars, on-demand content, and networking for people in all levels of their careers. And the best way to follow us and get upcoming information is to go to www.totheboardroom.com, and Jen's going to drop these links into the chat, and or follow us on LinkedIn, and make sure to stay in touch with all of the different events that we have going on. And some housekeeping items, Jen already alluded to a couple of them. Maia is going to make this very interactive, so we encourage people to drop things into the chat and even use the react buttons to let us know if you think something's pretty cool or you want to give a heart. And we'll pause here and there to make sure that that interaction can take place. And then, of course, we'll also save some time at the end if there's something that we didn't get a chance to address. Also, towards the end, we're going to put a session evaluation link into the chat for you to complete. It's just going to take 2 minutes, 5 questions, just gives us feedback to help make sure that we're improving all of these sessions as time goes on. And if you're not already muted, please make sure to mute yourself. Feel free to be on or off video. That part doesn't matter, but if you could mute yourself so that way we have the best audio situation as possible today. So about our session and Maia, Maia and I actually go way back to one of our shared clients, and I sat through a lot of her training and coaching and thought she was amazing and asked if she would be interested in enlightening us today. And we're so excited to have her. For those that originally signed up, we were supposed to have this session a few months ago, and yes, Maia is grateful for all of your patience while we rescheduled for today. So thanks to all of you for showing up either again or for your first time to see our beloved Maia. So again, she's going to be talking about how to untangle our difficult conversations by choosing our feelings in any moment, any conversation, or any presentation. Jen's going to be dropping her LinkedIn profile in the chat for you to connect. She's very active on social and would love to connect with you as well. And a little bit about Maia. She's a board-certified transformation and growth coach. She began studying the structure of experience in 1984. And since 1987, she's taught thousands of people around the world the potent practices that she's discovered and created as an international keynote speaker, master trainer, and author of 5 books. So thanks again, Maia, for joining us today. We're so honored to have you, and I'd like to pass it over to you.
Well, hi, everybody. It's my pleasure to be here. And I'm going to be looking at a conversation. And a conversation is kind of different than a presentation because, you know, you've heard that I'm a keynote speaker and you've heard that I can do that. But really, none of what I have to say today makes any difference at all on the planet until it connects to your issues. So everybody's muted, right? So all you can hear is my lovely voice. So my first thing I want to ask you about is, when you think about difficult conversations, who are you having difficult conversations with? Now, this is a trick question because you're typically not having difficult conversations with people that you're in high rapport with, right? Because if you have a difficulty with somebody that you're in high rapport with, you just go, hey, here's what happened, and can we, it's not a problem. You just work it out. It's not difficult. The difficulty happens when you're not in rapport with somebody and they do one more thing to get on your very last nerve and you fire up with, now I have to do something about this. Or you're sitting someplace in a meeting with other people and somebody who you're not in rapport with says something about you or about what you did or didn't do in front of everybody, and you get blindsided and your brain shuts down. Now I'm going to ask you how right I am by, if that is your experience, just put some checks in the chat and let's just see how close I am to your experience. Can I see the chat? Oh, I can see the chat. What do you think? Check. 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 Yeah. So yes. Good. Okay. So now here's what I want to invite you to consider. Having a just the idea of having a difficult conversation with somebody is for you to get one of two outcomes. Either this is somebody who you could be in rapport with. This is somebody who the relationship is important to you, either personally or professionally, and it would be good if you cleared up this little glitch between you. Or the idea of having a difficult conversation is going to help you understand this is a relationship you don't want to pursue, and you're not going to waste another moment of time or give this another second of real estate in your brain. Okay? So number one, 2/3 of what I'm going to be telling you about happens here, because only 1/3 is happening with the other person. A lot of times when I teach this, people are like, I can't wait to get in the conversation and really give it to them, have a difficult conversation and tell them how they really screwed up and what I want them to do differently. And yeah, my question to you is, how many of you have already done that, and how well did that work for you? If it didn't work well for you, just give me a thumbs down. And if it worked well for you, give me a thumbs up. I'm looking at the chat. What have you got? This worked well. This pretty much dumped. Yeah. Me too. Now, I did get some hearts. I love hearts. That means, thanks for asking the question, Marianne. Yes. So yes, we're all in the same place. So great. So first things first, rapport is lost. And that's about the relationship. So what I'm going to be teaching you about is understanding that if this is a relationship that you value, then we've got some work to do. Because when you point at somebody else about what they did and what you didn't like that they did, there's 3 fingers pointing back at you. So that's where we're going to start. So number one, they do something or don't do something. Something happens and you have an emotional response. Now, top 3 things I want to tell you about an emotional response. Number one, for everyone, emotion makes us stupid. And by stupid, I mean we are wired that when we have an emotion, that's our unconscious. And I haven't done a lot of talking about this in the world, but I'm really excited about this work that I did last year. And that is to understand that we think that our conscious experience, what you're paying attention to, is 100% of what's true. Something happens, we're conscious of it, and it sort of fills us so we can't even breathe. But I'm here to tell you that neuroscience has identified the fact that our conscious mind is 3 to 5% of everything that's possible. Like, wow. So what that means is when you are in a situation where you feel like you need to have a difficult conversation, it's only 3 to 5% of what's possible. A difficult conversation or something else. 95 to 97% is our unconscious, and that's where our emotions live. Our emotions do not live in our conscious. The minute you're emotional, you're in your body, you're in your unconscious, and you're being affected by things you are not even aware of. So that's number one. When you have an emotion, just count on the fact that you just lost 90% of your IQ, and just stop there. So the first thing I want you to know is an emotion, pause. Don't open your mouth, because if you open your mouth in an emotion, you're going to say something that you're going to have to fix later, or you're seriously going to regret. So an emotion, shh. Number 2, neuroscientists have taught us that any emotion that we feel lasts for 90 seconds. It comes through. And if you just let it pass, it will pass through. If you just breathe through it, it will pass through. Now, I have clients and audiences tell me all the time, it doesn't last for 90 seconds, Maya. It lasts for 90 days. Well, the reason it lasts for 90 days is because you're working it. It's because you're talking about it. It's because you're adding some more emotion with what you think, what you feel, what that person did before, all the other kind of stuff. And so we can work it. It's kind of like fanning a flame with one of those little things in the old-fashioned stories where they shh, shh, shh. If you just stop and let it pass, 90 seconds, and then you can think again, because you can't have a difficult conversation without your brain. Number 3, when you get blindsided or when you get attacked, what feels like an attack, or when you get surprised or when you get put down or when you get any of those things, it's a shock to your system. You're not expecting it. And most of us, myself included, I have been here, feel like we got to react. We got to respond. We can't let them get away with that. I'm here to tell you that the number one person who is the best suited to take care of you in this moment is you. So when I first got taught this, and you know how long I've been doing this work, so I can say 40 years ago and not surprise anybody, I actually had to do that because I was so quick to protect myself, defend myself, to react, that I actually, when I was learning this, because my mouth was going to open if my hand didn't close it. So I invite you to consider that number one, when something like that happens, you have to handle yourself first, and you have to handle your emotions first, because your emotions will not serve you. So that's step one. And my question to you is there anything we left on the table about your experience, or does this match what you know? Questions, comments, anecdotes in the chat or live. What have you got? Including,
I honestly, I think it's really great advice to just kind of be still. And I could kind of think back in my times like where I did react emotionally, and it takes a lot of work to recover from that. And sometimes you might not recover from that.
Stephanie, you are so true. And I'm one of those people who have, open mouth, insert foot all the way up to your hip. Honestly, in my 20s, I was the poster child for don't do this. Truly, truly, truly. So thank you for stepping in, and thank you for making it real. Awesome, awesome, awesome. You're right there. Okay, so let's see. I worked with a woman who often wrote weight on her hand. Why am I talking? That's so awesome. Because why did they not teach us this in kindergarten? Everything I needed to know I learned in kindergarten? No, I didn't. Why did they not teach us this? What's a good response if you feel you need to provide one but don't want to respond with emotion? Okay, so if you have to respond in the moment, let's talk about this later. I mean, you can write that on your hand. Let's talk about this later. Because honestly, there is a little creature that crawls in your ear that prevents anything that anybody says from getting in. Now, I will put this in the, let's see, Jennifer, would you please write in all caps in the chat, because I cannot talk and write at the same time. I'm going to spell something for you, okay, and you're going to put it in the chat. Capital B, capital E, capital P, capital P, capital U, capital M, capital O, capital I, capital D. Can you make that happen for me? Yes, thank you. Now, I discovered a little creature called the bepamoid. Now, Jennifer Osborne has seen this up close and personal, but I will tell all of you this thing because you don't know about it. It's my research from 1987. So it's a little creature that crawls in your ear. Yes, possibly, but let me tell you about the bepamoid first and you tell me what you think. Okay, Lauren, hang on. So the bepamoid crawls in your ear and prevents you from hearing anything anybody has to say, which means, once again, we said when you're emotional, your brain doesn't work. So you can't see it because it's so small, but you can see the symptoms. Here's the symptoms: bored, emotional, physically tired, preoccupied, uninterested, mentally tired, organizing your thoughts for a reply, interrupting, and distracted. So, is there value to making a general statement of, I'm reacting to this? I would invite you to consider that the possibility exists they don't care what you're doing. Because remember, this happens outside of rapport. There's no rapport, there's no meeting of minds, there's no connection. They don't care that you're reacting. So if you say, let's talk about this later, let me get back to you, then you're not asking, you're not saying anything about you. You're actually engaging with them, and you're understanding that they may have their own bepamoid, uninterested. They might be physically or mentally tired. They might be distracted. This might have happened because it was a total mistake and misunderstanding, but guess what? Right now, you're having a reaction to it, and you can't respond. So let's talk about this later when I can hear you better. Let's talk about this later. Let's do this again, and then stop. Because the longer you let it run out, the worse it gets. And Stephanie, I think you'll give me a high five on that, right? The longer you let it run, the worse it gets. So stop it and understand you have an infestation of a bepamoid. Thank you, Stephanie. And understand there's no good way out but to stop. And thank you so much for that. That's great. Okay, so this was step one, handle yourself first. Anything else? Thank you. Thank you, Lauren. Anything else? Good? Because now we're going to get into the second juicy part. Everybody good? Thumbs up? Yes, yes, yes. Okay. Jennifer Osborne just gave me a thumbs up, so I'm good. Thank you. And Jennifer. All right, now that once you have a brain, and you cannot do this in front of people, thank you, Stephanie. You cannot do this in front of people. You have to do this alone. So one of the things I've recommended for people since the 80s is if you're working in an organization and you're in a public place and you have to take yourself somewhere, I always invite you to take yourself to the restroom, because nobody's going to stop you from going to the bathroom. You just go, would you excuse me for a moment, and get the heck out of there. Whether you go to your office or you go to the bathroom or you walk outside and catch a breath of air, get yourself out of that place so that you have some space with yourself. If you're by yourself and you're working from home, go like this, turn off your screen, turn off your sound, and just, so now you have to identify the issue. So what the heck just happened? 99 and 44 100% of the time, there are 4 possibilities. And we're going to talk about the first 2. First one is they are doing something that you don't want them to do. Calling you out in a meeting, saying something about your work, blindsiding you with whatever. They are doing something that you don't want them to do. And there's the conflict. Okay, there's the problem. Or they are not doing something that you want them to do, and there's the problem. Now, the other 2 are you are doing something that they don't want, and they're coming at you for it, or you are not doing something that they want, and they're coming after you for it. So one of those 4 situations is happening, and your mission at this point is to go, okay, what the heck just happened? What is the problem? Because once you separate the situation from your emotion, you can actually move forward on it. And remember, you're not talking to anybody right now. You're not saying anything. You're not reacting. You're simply going in and going, self, what's the deal? Once you map this out and you go, oh, well, so you have some understanding about what's really happening. Once you have some understanding about what's really happening, then there's possibilities that you can do something about it. Now, once again, having a difficult conversation with somebody, especially one that you invite, is because you are trying to remedy the situation and deepen the relationship. If you don't want to deepen the relationship and you don't want to remedy the situation, you don't have to have a difficult conversation. And if they want to have one with you and you're not interested, you don't have to. I don't know that it's out there in the world that you can say no to a conversation with somebody you don't want to have. And if you don't need them, and if you're not ever going to need them, and it's not something that's going to affect your work, save yourself the trouble. Save yourself the grief and walk away clean. Say no thank you, and it's okay. And if there's a relationship that needs to be salvaged or saved or deepened or repaired, then this is the best way I've ever found to do it. So now you know what happened. You're not in emotion. You've allowed yourself to take care of yourself. And now there's 3 steps, because of course with me there's always 3 steps. The first thing is, what happened? Just be really clear about what happened and understand that it's only your side of what happened, because you have no idea what happened with them. So if you're clear, this is how it occurred for me, this is what I saw, this is what I felt, this is why I had the response I had. Be really clear about that. And now, the next thing is, how is this not getting handled affecting your relationship? When you're really clear on that you're about repair, you show up differently. You show up in a conversation as a collaborator, as a colleague, instead of someone who's been offended. It's a completely different energy, and it gets a completely different result. And if you've ever had anybody come at you without doing this work, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And the third thing is, okay, so now you know what happened from your point of view, and you know that if you don't handle this, what's at cost? What will it cost you to not handle it? And what will it gain you to handle it? So that gives you a little bit of courage because you want something now. And then the next thing is, okay, so what do you want? What do you need from them? What will you be asking them to do going forward? Okay, so this happened. It gave us the opportunity to talk to each other. And now, how do we want to do this going forward? Here's what I ask of you. Now, I've been in conversations in business with people who don't ask me anything. They tell me, here's what you're going to do. And my question to you is, how much do you think that's actually going to happen when somebody says, here's what I want you to do? If you're like me, like probably 0. Who else besides me don't tell me what to do? It doesn't work. Even though, you know, people in positions of power can say, here's what I want you to do. So I have always found that here's what happened to me. Here's what's at risk that I really don't want to risk, and why I'm taking the personal risk to have this conversation with you. And here's what I want us to do going forward. Here's what I invite us to do going forward. And I really need your support. Now, you haven't talked to anybody. You're just mapping this out in your head. You're just deciding and mapping it out. So when you get in a real conversation with somebody who's going to tell you things that you had no idea about, at least you've got a leg to stand on, and you don't get blindsided. You know what you want, you know what you're there for, and you're prepared to have the conversation. So those are the 3 things I always recommend that people think about and prepare for before they ever invite anyone to have the conversation with them. So that's the end of part 2. So questions, comments, anecdotes, what have you got? Or questions? Thank you so much. Thank you, Emily. And it's possible that you all may be going, oh my God, I had no idea. And that's okay. That's okay. How many of you have ever used a framework, or how many of you have ever done any preparation or thought of anything like this before? Yes, yes, Stephanie, absolutely. Most people tell me they have never planned for a conversation. They've just kind of gone in because they wanted something. So there's something else that may be useful in this conversation. So how many of you, and just give me a check or a thumbs up, how many of you have ever ridden a bicycle with gears on it before? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So yes. Okay. So, you know, if you just have a bicycle, those little, thank you. If you just have a bicycle that doesn't have any gears, it's just like a little tricycle, you know, you're at the mercy of the terrain, right? The hills are harder, you know, going up or going down. It's easy to just go flat. But if you've got gears, you can handle different terrains. But one of the things I've been teaching for a really long time that will really help us with this conversation is that we all have 3 mental gears. Now, most people aren't aware of that. However, thousands of people around the world, when I tell them this, are like, oh my God, yes. So let me share it with you. So first gear is what I call planet me. And first gear is your subjective experience. It's your conscious and unconscious experience. Always right, always true, but just for you on your own little planet. Everybody has a first gear. 98% of people use it, except those of us that have been trained that first gear is bad and we shouldn't use it. And that's another conversation for another day. So first gear, planet me, always right, always true, but just for us on our own little planet. Second gear, if you have somebody that you love, it's easy for you to imagine what their planet me is like. Because if you have a disagreement or there's something that goes wrong in the conversation, you're like, how did you get there? Like, walk me through that. Like, how do we get here? That's second gear, walking a mile in the shoes of someone that you care about. Now, when you use second gear as a choice, it means you are willing to walk in the shoes of someone you don't know or don't like. What second gear will give you in a difficult conversation is an understanding and exploration of what else could be happening. Remember, 3 to 5% of everything that's conscious, everything else is outside of your awareness. So when you walk in second gear with someone that you don't know well or you don't like, you actually get more information that helps your own first gear, that helps your experience that you never would have gotten if you hadn't taken that walk on the wild side. First gear, all about you. Second gear, the only gear you can listen in. You listen to people that you love because you want to hear what they have to say. When you get in second gear to listen to someone with whom you're having a difficulty, amazing things can happen. Third gear. Third gear is like a bird flying overhead and watching the action without any personal opinion. So if you've ever gone into a restaurant and seen 2 people in a table, first gear would say they're married. First gear would say, oh, they're dating. How can you tell? How can you tell they're dating? Trick question. And you can say it out loud. You can shout it out loud if you want to, or you can put it in the text. How can you tell they're dating? 2 people in a booth. Yes, yes, yes. They're talking the whole time. They're like paying attention to each other. Yes, thank you, Emily. They're like, yeah, no, they can't take their eyes away from each other. Yeah, so that's our first gear, making a judgment. But you know what? PDA, absolutely, absolutely. Sitting side by side, but yes, 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 yes. What if they're married? My husband and I have been married 34 years. We're those people. So first gear makes a decision about whether they're married or not. Third gear says they're talking the whole time. They can't take their eyes away from each other. They're sitting on the same side of the booth and sitting really close. That's third gear. There's no opinion. You're just mapping out the behavior. So third gear is looking at the action without putting your first gear opinion, whether they're married or not. First gear, all about you. Second gear, considering the other person. Third gear, simply looking at the action. So when you're thinking about having a difficult conversation, if you use all 3 gears in your planning, then you're going to have a lot wider space of possibility, a lot bigger expanse of what you can walk through. Some people cannot walk through difficulties that cause them high emotion. And guess why? Remember, 95 to 97% is unconscious. Every time we learn anything in our lives, it goes in our unconscious. Now, without giving you a whole big thing, which I am very excited about, I'm going to give you a short thing. Whenever you pay attention to anything, and paying attention is just what you do with your conscious mind, you just pay attention. It's like a big old hand. What's this? What's this? What's this? If you don't pay attention to it, it doesn't exist for you. So if somebody is doing something that you disagree with and you really pay attention to it and you really work it, then it's true for you. It's big for you. But if somebody does something that's annoying or whatever, and you don't pay attention to it, or you don't give it, you just go, yeah, that's just how they are, and you keep on moving, you have a completely different experience of the exact same thing. Does that make sense? So when you pay attention to it and you do something about it, you always have a choice about where you're going to take this relationship. And that's the bottom line of any difficult conversation. Where are we going with this? Where are we taking this conversation? Okay? So what questions do you have before we get to the conversation? Because then the next thing I'm going to ask you to do before we close is to give me some examples of a difficult conversation, either that you wish you did better or that you need to have and want to get really good at. Okay, so we're at the end of part 1, part 2. We're getting ready for part 3. Any questions before we go to the conversation? How do you just watch, listen without forming an opinion? This is very hard. Thank you, Jennifer. I just saw a question. How do you watch? Okay. So remember Planet Me. Planet Me is always right, always true, just for you. So it may be that on your Planet Me, everything has meaning. Okay? Everything has meaning. So I have something up on my board. And you can't, if I take this whole thing, you can see it. On my board, it says pattern plus meaning equals emotion. One of the basic things I teach if I'm coaching or training. So you see some behavior, and everything that happens in the world is a pattern for us. That's why we know what it is. If we don't recognize the pattern, we pretty much ignore it. It's not happening for us because our conscious mind is set up to pay attention to patterns that we know. So we see something happening and then we make it mean something. Now, does it actually mean what we make it mean? Absolutely not. What we make it mean is based on all the experiences that we've had that are stored in our unconscious. Okay? One of the things I say is if you feel like crap, it's an unconscious trap. Because you have no idea how you got there, but you know what that means, don't you? You know what they're doing, don't you? Yeah, they're really not. That's just what's happening on your planet. So it's very hard for some folks, and you may be one of them, to not have an opinion because having an opinion is something that they're great at. Now, sometimes you're in a situation where you having an opinion makes you excellent at a job, a relationship, a skill. I have no opinion about having opinions. However, I would always ask, how is what you're doing serving you? So when you have an opinion that doesn't serve you, then you have a choice. Okay. So I would plug in, and this is why I really wanted to be sure to say that 3 to 5%. I would plug in, and this has helped me so much since October. Oh my God. October was a real eye-opener for me because I landed in the hospital because of conversations with family members. Now, you'd think I wouldn't say that on a recording, but I just did. Because of what I made it mean. Yeah, the reason I have this on my board, pattern plus meaning equals emotion, is to remind me that just because I think it means something doesn't necessarily mean that it does. So when you make something mean something and you have an opinion about it, I'm going to invite you from now on to consider whatever that opinion is only 3 to 5% of what's possible. Oh my God, that has helped me so much since October. So pay attention to something else. All you have to do is just shift your attention. Think about anything else, anything else. If you saw the movie Up, there's a bunch of dogs who can talk, and this is my byword, squirrel. No matter what you're doing, when you have an opinion, squirrel. Just shift yourself out of it, and it will help you. It is a great movie. Absolutely, Stephanie. And, you know, what are your thoughts on advice I've been given related to second gear? Absolutely assume positive intent. I would invite everybody to believe that on planet me, for every single person on the planet. Now, I get pushback on this, and that's okay. It's just my first gear, not the truth. I imagine that every single person, even people who hurt me or upset me or aggravate me, or that I'm like, oh my God, are you kidding me right now? They have on their planet and their experiences and their circumstances positive intent for them. Not necessarily positive intent for me, and that's okay, but they have positive intent for them. And that helps me. That was awesome, Emily. Yes. Okay. What about navigating a situation where another party involved is having an emotional response, a personal opinion, floating into the conversation? Lauren, that's great. Can you give me more details on that? Just because they have it doesn't mean you got to do anything about it. So I know there's more here. Can you, because this looks juicy, because we're talking
Can you
about.
hear me?
Oh, Lauren. Yes, yes, yes.
Hey. Okay,
Yes.
I apologize for the hoarseness of my voice, but I figured this might be easier to explain than type. So let's say the situation, you're having the difficult conversation with someone and you're remaining.
We haven't gotten there yet. You're not having a difficult conversation with them yet.
Right.
Because we haven't gone there. But let's just say you're in a conversation with somebody, and
yes.
Is that okay with you? Okay.
Yep. Yeah. So in a conversation with someone, and you're disconnecting from your emotional side of it. You're sharing the information and checking all the boxes of what we've talked about so far, but you can recognize the other individual is struggling with that themselves. How can you compassionately and proactively or reactively, or however the conversation needs to flow, address that, but still keep those emotions in check on both sides?
Wow, Lauren. Wow. Okay. This is like a 5-piece. This is awesome. So first things first. Number one, everybody's on their own planet, and you're in a conversation that perhaps neither of you have prepared for. So you are not using your logical mind. Do I have that right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, yay. Okay. So check. So number two, you are both emotional. Game over. Game over. Nobody is going anywhere in this conversation except escalating. So the most compassionate, and you both have a bepamoid, a couple of bepamoids, you might be physically or mentally tired, but you're both emotional. So game over. Nobody can hear anything. You're just, and nobody's listening. Okay. So the most compassionate thing to do is to stop the conversation right there. And you could say something like, you know what? This is a really important conversation we need to have. And I'm just feeling like, and you can't say anything about them. And I'm just feeling I am not at my best right now. And I really want to be at my best for you. Let's wait on this. Can we please wait on this? And let's get back together when we can talk. Is that okay with you? That's exactly what I would do. Ha! I got a heart. Because what's happening, and full disclosure, I just had one of these kinds of conversations. One of the reasons I love this so much and I'm so passionate about it is because it happens to me. I don't take a breath without an emotion. Not one breath without an emotion. I feel everything more than anybody feels anything. There's a term called highly sensitive person. That would be me, card carrying, off the scale. So the things that I've created in my work over the last 40 years is to just keep me from losing my mind and looking like I'm kind of normal and not like I'm a maniac. Because yeah, I have maniac genes. I mean, hereditary maniac genes. And so my passion for this work comes from finding ways out of my own, oh my God, I fell into a deep hole again. When you have an emotion, there's usually a spin to it. My particular spin, and this is probably 6 weeks ago. Yeah, it's still fresh in my mind. My spin was this. I couldn't stop it. I couldn't stop the spin. Okay. I teach this stuff. It doesn't mean that it doesn't happen to me. It's going to happen to you. But this was my, here's a spin. I had to pull it down. I had to actually get, because I'm trained in this. There's a spin. Okay. And I will tell you right now, if you get in a spin, any kind of spin, you'll feel it. All you have to do is reverse the spin. In that moment, just reverse the spin. It's crazy how it works. I do this in my coaching all the time, and people are like, oh my God, that's magic. That's why I'm a sorceress, because this stuff is magic. Honestly, when you're in emotion, you cannot do anything. Unless you're in emotion of joy and you're with your sweetheart, and I'm going to close the door now. Okay? If you're in a negative emotion, just walk away clean. Did that help, Lauren? That was an awesome question. Did that help? Thank you. You're welcome. All right. So it's about 20 up, and I really want to get to the conversation. Thank you so much for making this engaging and making this delightful, because honestly, me just going like this was kind of like I wasn't going to have that much fun. And I want you to have fun, because when I'm having fun, you are too. All right. So now you've done all your work. Lauren and I have helped you. Stephanie and Emily and I have helped you. So now you are ready. You've done your personal work. You know what's at stake. And now you are going to invite the person to set a time to have a conversation with you. You are not going to like have the conversation with, you're going to ask to set the time. And if it's on if it's on FaceTime or if it's on Zoom or what, that's okay. You just want to create safe space. You want to create, I want to have a conversation with you. I care about this relationship. We've got something we need to work out, and I really want to have your help with this. That's the energy that you're going into it with. And so once you get to the place, you're just going to do 3 things. You're going to say, I have this issue, and thank you for meeting with me. Here's what's going on with me. I want to share it with you because I want to clear it. So what happened, how it affected you, and then, so how was that for you? And then you shut up and let them talk, because they're going to tell you things you have no idea about. You have no idea how it was for them or where they were. And so second gear, that's what you need right now. Walk on their planet me. You've given them your planet me, and odds are high they've listened because of how you set it up and because you are coming in clean without emotion. You're just in third gear. Here's what happened. Here's why I reacted. How was it for you? Okay. You're going to get information that I can't teach you about right now because I don't know what they're going to say. But I promise you, you're going to get information that you don't know. Now, when they tell you that, it could just end the conversation right there. I mean, you might not even have to have these pieces, but if you have these pieces in your heart, then you can respond in whatever way is normal. You're not going to have a little checklist for the conversation, I hope. So what's at stake is the relationship. When they tell you what they tell you, you're going to see what the 2 pieces are and how is it affecting your relationship. The next thing is about how important this relationship is to you, even if it's just work. This isn't, we have work to do together. We're colleagues, and it matters to me. And if you can be personal enough to say, you don't have to, but if you can be personal enough to say, and you matter to me, our relationship matters to me. I want us to go forward with a better relationship because this happened. It's kind of like, I used to travel all the time for my work because I used to do keynote speeches all over the place. And of course, I'm in hotels a lot. And if you've done a lot of traveling and you're in hotels, you know that occasionally you will be traveling all day from one side of the country to the other, get to your hotel room and it's dirty or it's smelly or something doesn't work and you're exhausted and you go down to the front desk and you say, my room absolutely sucks and I can't sleep there. Now, that's the problem. The person at the front desk will say, I am so sorry that happened. Could we please give you the presidential suite? And you are so glad they screwed up and you write a glowing review for this hotel because they made you so happy they screwed up. That's my metaphor. Difficult conversation. I want you both to be so happy you had this screw up because you're giving each other the presidential suite simply by telling the truth and by making the other person important enough to have the conversation with. So there's that. And then once you get there, yeah, it is sort of a kumbaya. Full disclosure, total kumbaya, because that's the energy of we can go forward. And now you got to say, okay, so going forward, We learned some things. I didn't know that about you. You didn't know that about me. So here's what, let's do this going forward. If this happens again, you can count on me to whatever. If this happens again, I want to count on you to whatever, because we're going to screw up with each other. We're going to make mistakes with each other. And you know what? Let's be sure that should X happen, this is what we're going to do next time. So that's what I recommend for the conversation. And that's the best I got. So we got 15 minutes for questions on that, or a situation you want to work through, because we will take a real situation and unpack it. So what would you like? We got 15 minutes to play. Thank you, Amy. This was great. Thank you. I appreciate that you mentioned the heart in these matters. It's a reminder that we're human, but our approaches can be better. Absolutely, absolutely. So Jennifer, you've got, okay, advice on, okay, so two things are happening. One is, and Amy, you got lots of hearts. If no one has a situation, I have one, great. We'll hold on to that, Jennifer. And then Leah says, advice on navigating the dynamic of having this conversation. Oh my God, how cool is that? Yes. So do we want to make it real, or do we just want to make it, you know, they're your boss? What would you like, Leah? You want to get real with it, or do you want to just walk around it? And Ripley Reynolds has something as well. So I just want to make sure, Leah, I'm not leaving you in the dust. There's a quick answer to a supervisor, or if you want to make it real, what would you like? I tell you what, you get back to me, okay? I'm still here, and even if it's offline, I'm happy to help you with that. So I'm going to go to Ripley Reynolds. And this is awesome. When you're seeking to understand someone, how do you come off not condescending or sarcastic? People tend to think I'm undermining them when I ask, how did you come to that conclusion? Sorry, I was having audio issues. We can keep it general. No, I'll come back to it, Leah. Okay, I didn't forget you. So Ripley, here's an interesting thing. There is something about tone of voice that will kill you, even if your heart is in the right place. So when you say, how did you come to that conclusion? You know, they go, I'm not even going to tell you the answer to that question. But if you say, wow, how did you come to that conclusion? It's a completely different feel. The words are exactly the same. So it's the energy behind it. And once again, you got to pay attention to first gear, planet me. What are you really feeling? What is really true? And it might be unconscious. It might totally be unconscious, and you might not be aware of how you're coming across. So once again, you have to really, I always think you have to really pay attention to any emotion in your voice. There's times when I have conversations with people close to me and I will say, I'm not mad at you. I sound like an anal aperture right now because I'm emotional, but I'm not mad at you. See my hand? And when I find myself doing that, I'm like, can I please come back? Because I don't take a breath without a feeling. And if you're one of those people, you have no idea how much your energy is coming through, and the other person is making an assessment of what's true. Remember, pattern plus meaning equals emotion. If they make it mean something that you don't mean, that's their unconscious, that's their planet me. So you got to really, the best thing to do is be in third gear. Third gear's got no emotion to it, and I highly recommend it. Does that help? Okay. Okay. So if you are thanks, Ripley. Okay, so if this is with a supervisor, watch this. You have no power. You have no power. You have influence, but no power. So let's say a supervisor did something, and I used to work for somebody who thought I was the Antichrist, truly, and who did everything he could to make the other people on the board, it was a small company, I was training trainers, believe that I was going to be the demise of the entire company. They needed to get rid of me. Well, they might have if I wasn't getting the highest marks in the classroom of any trainer that worked for them. So they weren't going to fire me because I was making money for them. But I had to work with somebody who thought I was the Antichrist and who didn't like me, didn't approve of me, and I knew it. So he's my poster child. It took 6 months, but I teach this stuff. So what I had to do was get off my own planet and get on his planet. We were completely opposite. And plus he was a guy. He came up to here on me. Yeah, so there was all kinds of issues. All I had to do was first gear. Do I care about this job? It was the best job I had ever had working for somebody else, and I loved it, and I didn't want to quit. That's my first gear. Second gear, what has to be true about this person for their behavior to me to make sense? So I had to do a lot more than I can tell you right this minute. However, I had to use all of my communication skills to unpack what second gear was like for him. He was procedural. He wanted me to follow the rules. I don't follow the rules. He wanted me to be auditory and tell things. If he was judging me then for this, he would say, you did this completely wrong. You should have done all the talking. Why are you asking them questions? Why don't you just let them sit and listen to you? So everything that I was doing was the exact opposite of how he would do it. So what I had to do was find out what we had in common and meet him there. So if you have a supervisor who is difficult for you, I'm going to invite you to consider what is true about that person that makes their behavior to you to make sense, and then get around it. Find out what their first gear is like, and find ways to meet them where they are. Remember, difficult conversations happen with people you don't have rapport with. The first thing you have to do with a supervisor is create rapport. It took me 6 months, and I'm not saying it was fun because it wasn't, but fortunately we were remotely located, so we weren't in the same office. It took 6 months for him to say to somebody else, she's the best trainer I've ever seen. Well, okay, fine. That other person reported it to me. She said she already knew that. But the point is, it was me being different to him that allowed him to see what was different about me that had value. Does that make sense? So yeah, that's where I would go. Thank you for your insight and helpful tips. Thank you, Kimberly. I've got to hop off. God bless you. Thank you. Thanks, Leah. Oh my God. Okay, so it's 5 minutes till. My commitment as a great leader is to always end early. It's been my pleasure. It's always my pleasure to do this work. I will have a 30-minute conversation with anybody for any reason. It's called a discovery session. So if you want to talk to me, just go to my website. It's on my homepage, and schedule a discovery session, and we can talk about this further. Thank you for your support. Back to you, Jennifer. And Jennifer, that was so fast.
It was so fast. Thank you so much, Maia. As I shared before, I've sat through Maia's training in the past, and though the content was familiar, I was reminded how much I implemented of it in my life since I learned from you several years ago, Maia. So hopefully people are able to implement these things in their lives and work as well. And we're so grateful for your time and what you've shared. Jen has dropped into the chat a link to the 2-minute evaluation. So if everybody could just take the last couple of minutes to fill that out for us, we would greatly appreciate it. And to please stay tuned for our next session that we're working on coming up in the second quarter. And make sure that you grab Jen's email address that she's going to drop in the chat, and make sure that you have that on your safe senders list so that any invitations to our upcoming sessions do not get lost in your spam. And Maia's going to send out, or Jen's going to send out a link to Maia's form or worksheet to be able to hang on to, check out, and reinforce what you've learned today. And again, thank you so much, Maia. Happy New Year to everybody, and thanks for everyone's time today.
Yeah, I apologize. It's not letting me drop in the worksheet into the chat for some reason. So we will email that out following the meeting. So look for that there. I'll just send it to the group that was on the phone as an attachment, so you don't have to download anything. But yes, absolutely amazing. Thank you, Maia, so much. Thank you for all the members who were very active in the conversation. That makes it so much more rich of an experience for all of us. So thank you everyone for sharing as well. So look forward to seeing everyone soon. Thank
Thanks,
you,
guys.
Maia.
Happy
Thanks,
New
Jen.
Year. Thank
Happy
you.
New Year.
Thank you.
Bye.